Welcome to First Things First. I'm Brooke Blurt. My pronouns are she and her.
I'm Matty Mills. My pronouns are he and him. And before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record. And for us today, it's the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation. We also have a very special guest on today's episode. It's one of those eps where we get to interview someone deadly, and today it is the Mr. Travis Cardona.
Whee!
How you doing, bros?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming
course.
in.
Well, who's your mob? Where you from? Let's kick it off with that.
Yeah, so that used to be my old job.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Is it weird just getting it done to you now?
So Travis Cardona, my mob's Mullock from the Northern Territory. So born and bred on Larrakia country. And it's really nice to be here today in the studios at Nova. Just seen Tribal Warrior over there on the side. So
it's a pretty good view from here, hey? Well, the people that probably can't see it from the listening in their AirPods, but we sit right beside Pyrmont Bay and we look directly out at the water. So, yeah, Tribal Warrior's crew. Would you call it a cruise ship?
yeah, it's a tour ship. Yeah, they do tours around the
yeah.
harbour. But no, it's a beautiful
love
spot.
that.
So thanks for having me, guys.
You're so welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Well, I just want to put this out there. You know, I'm so glad that we can have you on this pod because you actually gave me my first ever presenting job. So now it feels like a full circle moment where I'm like hosting you. You know what I mean? Like this is a bit surreal for me. But
What was that job, can I ask?
it was at first it was just like an ad hoc Facebook Live gig, really. In
Yeah.
NITV.
Do you want me to tell the story? So
Tell the
what
story.
happened
Tell
was-
the
Please,
yarn.
because I love going,
I think it was like 2017. It was the first time at NITV we'd done a Facebook live broadcast from Mardi Gras, and it was the NT First Nations float, which was made up of all these mob from Darwin, and it had everyone from like Crystal Love, Miscellaneous, Cousin Josie Baker. It was just like all the black excellence from the LGBTI community that came down for it. And Miscellaneous, who's also my cousin, Ben Grant, shout out, was supposed to be hosting. But because it's so loud, and the first time we've ever done a Facebook Live broadcast with a backpack, so we wore a satellite backpack on our back. Cameraman was following me, and I had the microphone, and I was passing it to Miscellaneous. Anyway, she lost her voice, so I ended up having to take over. And I was exhausted, and I saw this person with lots of energy actually dancing with my cousin, Warren McGrath, wearing very little clothing. And
Sounds like Mardi Gras.
and I was like, hey, do you want to hold the mic for a bit? And so I remember Matty grabbed the microphone and skipped along Mardi Gras and was talking to people, asking them how their Mardi Gras is, and happy Mardi Gras.
That sounds
And I thought to myself, I got to get this guy next year. So it was like 2018. Matty Webb and John A. Jeffrey, shout out, came on and did that Mardi Gras tour, and then Mardi Gras broadcast to Facebook. And we were the first to do it as NITV. Like SBS had the major broadcast deal, but we were the first just to go live and just be with the mob and be with all the community on ground. And it was a fun time, right? It was
so fun.
I
You
don't
never
think
knew what you were going to expect.
Yeah.
You never knew what to expect. Like, you were going up to people and some of them, were answering, it was live. So, like, live TV, like, it's a risky game. Like, you don't know what you're going to get. And I remember some people were just so lit, like, it's Mardi Gras. People were just off their face. But it was that energy of celebration, euphoria. Yeah. It was a good time. But the next year was more planned and I loved it. Yeah. But so thanks Trav, but
walk down memory lane.
Yeah, enough talking about me. You've
Yes.
obviously, you've had a pretty stellar career. You started off at acting school and now you're back there.
Yep.
Bit of a full circle moment for you, right? What are you doing over at NIDA?
Yeah, so I'm the Director of First Nations and Outreach. It was something that was never there when I studied at NIDA back in 2006 to 2008. So I did the 3-year BFA acting course, and the unit that we have now is the First Nations unit. We have Uncle Matthew Doyle, who's an uncle in residence, Auntie Rhoda Roberts, who's an advisor. We have Andrea Daniel, who's a Yuan woman, who's our project coordinator, and then me, who looks after everything the team does, external stakeholders and internal with all the students and First Nations clients. And it's quite an exciting thing because when I studied at NIDA, we didn't really have any First Nations support.
Yeah.
And it was just us, the First Nation students that were there. So Miranda Tapsell, Shari Sevens, Maine White, Guy Simon, all of us were in the same cohort together.
Oh, what a cohort.
Yeah, so we
talent.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And their careers went great, and I ended up working at NITV for 10 years. No, well, there's a story to why. But I think, we've done a lot in a small space of time. We've had a First Nations approach to the curriculum where we've brought in what it is getting students to understand what connection to country is, and that it's not just a First Nations thing. Like, all people all around the world do have a connection to wherever they are. They might have been born there. You know, that warm hug that you get or that smell that sort of draws you into that place you grew up in, that is a connection to country. Everyone has that. And so we're trying to get our students, who are mainly artists, understanding that, like, it's a real thing, and hopefully that gives them, you know, respect and empathy and understanding, not just for First Nations people, but the environment as well, and understanding that within the environment around us, there's stories everywhere. So one thing I like to always talk about is Centennial Park. There's a series of ponds all through there. Yeah. And there's these eels that live in these ponds, and they're really sacred to the Darug and Darrell people and Bidjigal and Gadigal people. Those eels have survived living in this giant city, you know, this place that was built on top of the wetlands. And the wetlands used to run from Centennial Park all the way out to Botany Bay. Yeah, wow. And that's why they built a whole series of golf courses, because back in the day, people were like, oh, it's just swampland, so let's just turn it into golf courses. But the water still moves through there, and these eels still migrate through those wetlands, make their way through drains behind NIDA and all the way out to Botany Bay, where they swim to New Caledonia.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Which is like kilometers and kilometers away offshore.
Yeah.
They swim there and breed, and then their little babies, little translucent little slug things, swim all the way back and get to Centennial Park, and then they grow again for like 60 years. Wow.
Like,
so we
crazy.
teach our students, like, that's the story of survival and resilience, but also amazement. And it's all, there's things everywhere. You know, Disney will make a eel cartoon about it, obviously. Like Finding Nemo, the eel.
I mean,
that'd be so good. I mean, I used to go.
But yeah, I know of those stories, and I worked with Uncle Matty Doyle on a couple of those stories when I was doing the tour of the Harbour Bridge for the Burrawa climb. And so I remember hearing those things and just being like, wow, like thousands and thousands and thousands of like years of storytelling, you know, like, and culture practice, that I feel like if you even look at the city as a whole, it's like a blueprint built on what's already been here. You know what I mean? So I love that, like, not even just First Nations kids, but young people who are going into NIDA, or they don't have to be young these days, do they? They can be anyone.
No, you can be all ages.
Going through NIDA, get that next level of experience, because I went to WAPA and I did the Aboriginal Theatre course, and I remember that there was a disconnection between us and the rest of the school, for sure, the campus. But it feels like it's all sort of...
Yeah, and we do it to remove that cultural load. So when we were at NIDA back then, you know, back in the day, if there was anything First Nations topic that came up, all eyes came on us.
Oh, yeah, that reminds me of school.
Yeah. And I was like a 19-year-old kid from Darwin that just was like, I just wanted to be a stormtrooper and Star Wars. Like, that's why I'm here. Like, you know, everyone asks me these questions. Like, I don't know anything really. You know, like, I knew who I grew up and who my mob is, and you know, I love going fishing and hunting and all that stuff. But like, I don't know politics and stuff. And still,
there's so much pressure, and like responsibility put on you at certain ages. I know throughout my life, like, they'd be like, oh yeah, you know this one, Brooke. I'm like, what? And I moved from Carnarvon to Perth, so I was still finding myself. I went from being in a community, like having my family surrounded by me, to being the only black person in the white family. So I was like, I don't know these stories. Like, and it wasn't until later, I guess, going to university and then, you know, studying that I was educated. But those stories are so sacred. Like, I feel like we don't acknowledge like how the transference, like, down from, you know, our generation, like how sacred they are. And I love that, I guess, now working in like film and TV, that we're seeing a lot more of it, so we can share it and we're not having that responsibility to tell it and do justice. It's like, oh, well, you can actually watch some things now. Like, I think that's the beauty of storytelling. But then again, they still are sacred and we have to like protect them, I think, as well. Which...
It's really good that ABC, SBS, organisations like that, they have really strong cultural advisory strategies within their commissioning process. So a lot of the stuff being made today, you know, you have to have a First Nations cultural advisor that's connected to that area or is working with that community and traditional owners to tell stories. And so that's what we try to, you know, do within NIDA as well. So, you know, we know that for me, even Uncle Matt, we don't have permission to tell other people's stories. But if we can just provide a safe space for Indigenous and non-Indigenous students to explore, but they don't have to have the answers. It's just how do you explore what stories are out there in a respectful way, and that you're not putting your artistic interpretation on to change anything. You're just doing it in a way just to learn, so you can have respect. And the most important thing about most stories is just respecting the country and the environment and the language. And like you were saying before, the thousands of years of it going on, you know, it was never written down. It was all spoken orally.
That's what we yarn, and like we're so grateful that we've got the podcast to like yarn about these things. But like the depth and storytelling, and also like different perspectives that everyone has. Like every time, sometimes we interview people, and it's like you learn so much in that hour that like I don't take for granted. I think it's so nice. You've been in acting for quite a while. Was it inspired by stories that you went into acting, or was it something that you like? You said you wanted to be a stormtrooper. Like.
I think like it all started, you know. So when I was in primary school, I was just in trouble all the time, and my grades weren't very good. And they had a drama activity one day. It was a drama activity about Jesus. And they're all asleep on the boat. And I just remembered that my character was supposed to be asleep on the boat.
Oh my God, this is giving me PTSD from another thing that I will tell you about in a sec.
Sorry to bring up the Bible, but I just remember that. And my teacher said to me, hey, you did really good there. You remembered what your part was supposed to do. Yeah. And so I went, oh, okay. So someone complimented, said you did well.
Yeah.
And then this performance troupe came to our school maybe a year later. And these guys and women, there's three of them, they came up on stage and they had all these wigs and costumes, and they were just being silly and having fun. They were like being in drag and everything. And
it was miscellaneous.
Yeah. And then I was like, are we allowed to do that? You know, like I normally get in trouble for being a clown. And then I thought, oh, I want to do that. And they said, well, maybe you want to be an actor one day. So cool. I just really enjoyed doing, you know, being fun and showing off to people. And then I was about 14, and there was a play Richard Franklin wrote that was coming to Darwin, and they were looking for understudies, and it had Aaron Pedersen and Dermot Heidenreich in it. Okay. Dermot was they were both in Water Rats at the time, and so I sort of knew who their names was, and this audition opportunity came out, and Mum said, you want to go for it? So this was like 2000, like 24 years ago, right? And I auditioned and I got the role as an understudy. And these were hard plays. Like one was about deaths in custody. Aboriginal
what were their names? The plays?
Harry's War and Nowhere to Forget.
Okay.
Yeah, so one was about deaths in custody, which was Nowhere to Forget. And the other one was about returned servicemen from World War II that were First Nations that weren't recognised as citizens.
Yeah.
And so the first ever play I did outside of, you know, school or whatever was this real hard-hitting play. I remember being emotionally caught up, not understanding about, you know, suicide in, you know, performing these characters, and how soldiers weren't even allowed to go into the RSL and have a beer, and they went to fight to get their citizenship, but they weren't even recognised. Yeah. So I really got thrown in this deep end, but that's where my passion came in. I just, working with Aaron at such a young age, I was like, man, I just want to be like him. And he just took me under his wing, like straight away, you know. It was like a big brother. And, you know, it's funny, like it was a small period, this age of 14, but like that just changed my whole trajectory of what I wanted to do with my life. So I just kept doing youth arts, youth theatre. That's when I met Miranda. Me and her were at Corrugator Youth Arts performing in plays. And and then we auditioned for NIDA when we were like 18, 19. Yeah. We worked on our like audition pieces together at Corrugator Youth Arts, and we got in. It was crazy. So
that must have been a big moment though, because it's two kids from the same place. Yeah. That doesn't happen often. Like, you know, it's such a tight, exclusive group that gets into NIDA, really. You know what I mean? It's like the most talented in the country. Yeah. For two of you to get in, that must have been amazing for you both.
Yeah.
Because you're moving from Darwin. You know what I mean?
I didn't think I was going to get in. And I remember we had to sing. So they asked us to do our audition, and you had to do 2 auditions, like a Shakespeare and a contemporary, and then you had to sing something.
What did you sing?
I sung some silly voice warm-up thing that I learnt while I was doing Harry's War and No. Yeah, it was something in Italian.
Yeah.
That I had no idea what it meant. But it's all I could come up with on the
done
spot.
that now. I kind of like can relate to that, like only in the last year, but
that's funny.
that would make no sense to me.
And I'm pretty sure Miranda did like Billie Jean by Michael Jackson.
Oh,
Of course she did. She would have come in with the one glove and the socks
But yeah, look, we got in and it was an amazing experience. Like the teaching staff at NIDA that taught us back then are no longer working there anymore. Some have passed away, but it was what they said was like, that was the era of NIDA where, it's changed a lot since then.
Yeah.
It was very hard back then.
Yeah.
It was just very straight up, straightforward. There was no mucking around, you know. And like today, it's very professional and all of that, but it was just a different time. We're talking about almost 18 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, it's that's what happened. And then I worked as an actor for a while. I did a show with Nakia Louie, This Heaven. I did a show with Griffin Theatre Company. I've just got a role on All Saints. No one probably knows what All Saints is anymore.
I know.
Well, you guys do?
Yeah.
Younger generation.
But not these younger ones.
No.
Not the
They're like, is it TikTok? No.
Yeah. And then, like, I was doing a development show with Wesley Enoch, and it was called Black Diggers, and I was like, yes, this is going to be awesome. It's about, First Nations men that went to fight in war, and they took all these stories together, and it had a great cast, like Luke Carroll, Maine Wyatt, David Page, rest in peace, and I was about to go on this tour, and then this other thing came up at SBS where they had a 1-year contract to work at SBS, and it came with training in screen and media. And I was like, and it was, it was a struggle back then. There wasn't as much First Nations content being made. Like, we were, all of us mob that were in the industry were all turning up to the same auditions or going for the same roles. And, being light-skinned as well, like, it was really hard to cast me. Like, they didn't know how to cast us back then. It was, so I took this, 1-year contract with SBS, and then did a certificate 4 in screen and media at Metro Screen, and ended up becoming a producer in the end. So I think some of the highlights though, working at NITV, like the First Nation Fashion Awards, it was the height of COVID. They had their inaugural First Nation Fashion Awards happening, and they had no way of putting it on, and so we came up with a way where Rachael Hocking was hosting it at the time. We did it all from in studio. We set out stringers to go shoot a whole bunch of nominees who were actually the winners to tell their story. And we put that, we created that in, I'm pretty sure it was 2020 or 2021. But, that was one of the highlights for me of NITV, because it was telling all these mob stories and all the great work they're doing, plus helping the First Nations fashion industry, which is now booming. And it's so important that, we celebrate art and culture, especially through fashion. So it was like a massive, one of the most exciting things I did. But I worked on all the Gama festivals, the National Indigenous Music Awards.
I want to go back to typecasting. Because I feel like that's really interesting. Because with your experience, and I guess seeing and just hearing you say like you guys were all auditioning for the same roles and the same films, and how much has it evolved in a good way and a bad way, both? Talk to me about typecasting. Like both of you, I mean, I'm an actor, like, but just new, but I can't really talk from experience.
Like a blackfella's being pigeonholed?
Yes, is that
I suppose you can talk to like how much it's evolved over the years. I think it has changed a lot.
And it's because more First Nations people are the writers, directors, producers of content. And, in the last, since like 2013, there's been so much work that's been created. So people who are casting are getting the brief from a First Nations director and producer and writer, and so it's not a non-Indigenous casting agent working with a non-Indigenous producer. Like, we need this guy who fits this Aboriginal mold.
He needs to be
and
like that.
what their idea of what an Aboriginal person is. We're a very diverse group of people across a large continent.
Totally.
You know?
How many times would you have heard, can you sound more community? You know? Like
Is that an actual thing?
I think in the past it has been. It's where you walk into an audition space and they're like, yeah, but you don't sound Aboriginal. Can you sound more community? And it's like, well, what community are you talking about?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And our friends know this too well. Like, you know, light skin like Sharice Evans, you know.
Yeah.
I can imagine her experience.
Yeah, like it's just, I think you're right, it has changed, but I also think there's accountability now. You know, mob are more confident to be vocal about their experiences as well.
And to call it out if it does happen.
Yeah.
I guess that's what my interest is I guess for future young people who want to go into acting, like how to sort of have enough confidence to be like, oh, actually, like, sorry, not for me, you know, like.
Yeah, it's tricky though because you want the job,
role,
you know, you want the job.
It's a fine line to walk.
It's like,
because I've never really fit into, like, I've always been challenged on my looks. Like, I don't know what I'm going to be typecasted for. I have no idea. Because, like,
I think it's like an important thing that I only recently had this conversation with my new management. I said, I don't want to be boxed into a lane. I don't want to just be given First Nations roles.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Did
want
you feel like that too?
Yeah. Like, even when I came down from Darwin to NIDA when I was a young guy, like, you know, there was a tick the box that you're Aboriginal. And back then, to us, was like, why are you making me tick this box all the time? Like, I am Aboriginal. Why do I have to prove this to you?
That? I know.
And I guess it was a statistics thing back then, but we didn't know. Like, nowadays, like, just so we do that to... so we know
Bureau of Statistics.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But back then it was weird. It's like, well, I'm just a dude from Darwin. Yeah, I'm Aboriginal, but you know, I'd love to play anything. You know, but I think that's the thing. Like the identity of this country is starting to really understand that we are a multi-mix of peoples from all around the world, and this idea that it was just an Anglo society and then the Aboriginal people lived here, and then there was multicultural. That's not true. There was people from all countries around the whole world coming here since before even the first fleet came here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like
trade routes.
Yeah, there was trade routes. There was you know the Aboriginal people in like East Arnhem and across were trading with Macassans who were probably people of Muslim heritage well before the Dutch landed and well before the French landed here. So I think it's a thing now with going back to the industry and going back to typecasting and performances and how you fit and how you look. You know, we're living in a world where it should just be about, do you fit the story and do you fit the text and can you fit the truth of it? Yeah. And that's why I love sci-fi, because sci-fi you can have someone who is the captain and they're Japanese and the first mate is someone who has an African accent or whatever. No one questions it. It's just they're the people on this giant spaceship. Do you know what I mean? And so now in this modern day world in these big cities, that's how we do look, you know what I mean? Like there's people around here from all different backgrounds.
Totally.
20 years ago, you know, the guy playing your producer, they might have made it a white guy. You know what I mean? If this was a film. Yeah. But nowadays, it's you know, there's people of all different backgrounds and cultures working within this country. So it's quite exciting. Like, and I always think about, you know, should I go back to acting because now I can play the dad instead of the angry teenager. And the industry is just booming because so much, and there's so much content like Netflix, Stan, Amazon Prime, ABC, SBS, Channel 910. So much content's being created. Totally. Yeah. And they're all looking for people with different looks. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
It's not cookie cutter anymore.
Yeah. So that's what, you know, going back to, like, that's everything I was referring to. That was the past. Now, I encourage anyone that wants to follow a career in the performing arts, don't just think about acting though too. Like we need more people working behind the scenes in like costume that are from, you know, every community possible. You know, we need more people working in lighting and sound and, you know, cinematography. Like
I think they're the roles that
radio,
we don't get offered though in high school. Like I think when I talk to my kids about the film industry, like they ask me so many questions and I love when kids are curious because like, I feel like if you're curious, you're not being judgmental. And I think we need to teach our kids to be more curious than judgmental because it cuts them off from, like, knowing things. Don't you reckon? Yeah. Like, if you're judgmental, you're making an assumption and you're going straight. And our kids need to learn to be, like, ask questions, be curious, know things. But, like, the roles that you're talking about, like writing, producing, lighting, costume, like, they're not the roles that in high school you're taught to aspire to be.
Yeah.
And because then they're, you know, it's always like a lawyer, doctor, a nurse. Like,
yeah, it's more.
I feel like, you know, and kids aren't being explorative with what they would like, what they enjoy, or like they're always kind of just like confined.
Well, I feel like people would put creative in such a nonchalant like career box where it's like, oh, you can't really create, like you need another plan. It can't be just that.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
like a side thing.
It's a side thing.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the creative space is, as you say, booming. But I want to ask you, Trav. You know, you see the industry now. You're in a place where you can create change, obviously, like especially with the people going through NIDA. What is some advice that you would give someone who wants to go to NIDA, who is a First Nations, you know, creative, who wants to be an actor?
Look, if you want to be an actor, know your script, know your auditions well, find roles that work well for you, you know, and when you do your self-tapes, when you audition, make sure you look up a couple of YouTube videos how to do them right.
Yeah.
But, like, my thing is, if you love theatre and you love the performing arts and if you love film and television, you know, start doing it. Start writing stuff, start working in, you know, start joining to your youth theatre or friends at school that are making videos. Start doing things yourself, right? Because that, your own personal drive and passion for wanting to do it is what we love to see. But my other thing is find something in the industry that will keep you there. So I used to build theatre sets in between acting gigs.
There you go.
And so, you know, studying acting, I went out and all I could do was act. You know what I mean? But I taught myself some skills so I could build theatre sets in between. So, you know, doing a makeup course, a 1-year diploma in makeup and prosthetics.
That's cool.
We need more First Nations people and people of colour working in that industry.
Totally.
Right? And so, you know, we've recently just partnered with Netflix and we've got 5 places available for any persons of colour or First Nations. If you're from interstate or anywhere in the country, we'll fly 5 people down to do a 1-week workshop, free, fully covered, accommodation sorted.
Hair and makeup.
Hair and prosthetics, just to get the interest going. So hopefully, you know, and so my thing is that the industry is booming. It's amazing. Australia is the place you want to be right now for the film and television industry. And, you know, it's not just about acting. You know, there's so many other roles out there, and a lot of them are behind the scenes. And there's a real need to get more people of colour and First Nations in those roles to create culturally safe environments.
Totally.
Exactly.
Well, thanks, Trav. I mean, that's it's pretty cool to like know that, you know, the First Nations people over at NIDA are in good hands. You know, now it's a different world. I bet like they feel much safer, you know, and much more supported.
No, thanks for having me. And it was really nice to talk to you guys. And look, if anyone's interested in checking out NIDA, just go to our website.
Yeah, perfect. We'll put the link in the resource notes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for listening to First Things First. If you love what you hear, leave us a rating and a review.
And if you want us to cover anything on the pod, just reach out via our socials. Brooke's handle is @Brooke.Blurton. Mine is It's Matty Mills. And Trav, what is your handle? Can they follow you or is that unprofessional? Google
I don't have Instagram stuff. Like I do, it's private.
Yeah. So don't follow Travis. All right. Bye.